Hola, hola, my name is Ramon, cosmetic chemist, esthetician, lover of a new sunscreen launch, and boy, do we got a launch today. If you're not aware, NATURIUM is launching the second sunscreen in their roster of skincare, and there's a lot of hype around this one. I've had this now for, I would say, I think 2 or 3 months, and this is the sample packaging. This is the packaging that Susan sends us whenever there's a new launch that she wants to test out, get our feedback on. I got this back in, I believe, February, maybe March, but I've known about this for a minute. When I got married and Susan actually came to witness our marriage in Miami, she brought a little sample of this for us to try out, and that was back in January. So that was the first glimpse of this that I saw, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be hot. And so she sent us the full-size sample, and pretty much all the SciComm influencers got a little sample of this. So we've all been talking about this for a minute. This officially launches today, the day the video is going live. I have not received the finalized packaging, therefore that's why I have this. I'll have a picture of it on screen right here, but let's talk about this. This is the NATURIUM UV Reflect Antioxidant SPF 50 PA4+. So the big hype around this, first of all, is NATURIUM's initial sunscreen launch, the Dew Glow, was hot. It sold out a couple times. It was a very, in my mind, as a cosmetic chemist, I think a very cool formula for a US sunscreen. I think there was really innovative development behind the formulation, especially around the use of spherical silica to help increase the SPF, but also act as some blue light protection. But the issue with that formula was, as the name implies, it was dewy and it was glowy. It was a very dry skin forward sunscreen. I could use it, and I liked using it when my skin was more dry because of Tret, or I wanted a very glowy base, but it was not oily skin friendly. And so one thing about Susan is she's always cooking something up. She's always working on something. And so this was something she had been teasing to me for a minute. And so I was happy to see the final initial sample of it back in January. This is intended for more normal to oily skin types. It doesn't advertise being matte, but it advertises giving a nice satin finish to the skin. Reading the marketing right now. So first of all, this is 50 ml, aka 1.7 fluid ounces. This retails for $26, which we'll talk about later. But the marketing is, our sheer sunscreen is formulated with organic chemical sunscreen filters that reflect broad spectrum UVA and UVB rays. Reflects. I don't know why they say reflect, that's weird wording. This lightweight fluid formula features 2% InfraGuard to help protect against infrared, blue light, and pollution-induced free radicals. Pro tip, reapply at least every 2 hours or after 40 minutes of swimming or sweating, because this is in fact 40-minute water resistant, which is super exciting as well. But yeah, key points: nourishing sunscreen with SPF 50, water resistant for up to 40 minutes, provides a velvety, soft, focused finish, and protects against free radical damage caused by infrared radiation and pollution, which is a lot of things to pack into one little sunscreen. But let's get into the review. So as you can see, I'm very hyped for the sunscreen. Full disclosure, I obviously got a sample of this early on. I do have my own personal affiliation to Susan and NATURIUM. This is not an ad compared to the ads I've done for Dew Glow and a bunch of other NATURIUM products. I'm not getting paid for this, but this was gifted from the brand, and because it's launching today and I do sunscreen content, I'm going to review this sunscreen, which I now realize I never did a review for Dew Glow officially on this channel. Let me know if you want one. So getting into the review of this, as a chemical sunscreen, I'm going to be using my 6F testing rubric, where I talk about the feel, finish, filters, formulation, foundation wear, and fragrance. And with all my sunscreen reviews, I always measure out and weigh the amount of sunscreen I need for the size of my face. If you want to know how much sunscreen you need for the size of your face, I have a card up here in the corner of the screen. And let's get into the application. So as the marketing suggests, and as you see on screen, this is a very fluid, milky sunscreen. So already very different from the Dew Glow. So the feel of it on the skin, it's a very lightweight, milky sunscreen. There's a little bit of an emollience to it as you're working it into the skin. Like it feels, it's hard to explain. It's kind of silky, kind of velvety, a little bit emollient-y. But after you let it set down for like 30 to 60 seconds, that completely, it like sets down, and your skin, you just have a nice velvety soft touch. On screen you can see it sets down and you have a very natural to semi matte finish, like a satin matte finish. So it looks very nice on the skin. And I got oily skin, let me tell you. So the feel of it is very lightweight. Once it sets down, you don't feel greasy, you don't look shiny. So that's the finish of it. It's a velvety satin matte finish. I'm gonna say it's satin matte. They're not advertising that, but that's one of the big pros of this, is that all of us have been like, oh, this finish is different for an American sunscreen. We have yet to really see a matte American sunscreen, and you don't feel it on the skin at all. There's no greasiness, no heaviness to the skin. As I mentioned, it's a nourishing formula. I find with nothing else underneath it, or at most a lightweight like serum or toner, it's nice and moisturizing on my skin, having oily skin. If you have dry skin, you will want to nourish your skin a little bit more with a moisturizer. So for filters, as I mentioned, this is an American chemical sunscreen. So this uses avobenzone at 3%, homosally at 10%, and octosally at 5% for that SPF 50 PA4+ protection. And in terms of SPF boosting, on top of just the butylactose salicylate, there's nothing in it like the calcium aluminum borosilicate or calcium sodium borosilicate that was in the Dew Glow that helped with that blue light and SPF boosting capabilities. I see acrylates cross polymer, which it's a category of ingredient that can potentially help with SPF boosting, but aside from that, I don't see much on here that could boost the SPF more. And one thing worth mentioning is the fact that, as I mentioned earlier, this is SPF 50 PA4+, PA4+. So Naturium did go and did do the extra testing to further verify the UVA protection that you can achieve with this sunscreen. So you have PA4+, which indicates at least a UVA PF of 16. So that's really nice to see, especially in a water-resistant formula. In terms of the other formulation key points, this is a shine controlling sunscreen. In terms of mattifiers, things that help to absorb excess oil, I see aluminum starch, octenyl succinate, as well as lauryl lysine. Both of those, as far as I formulated with, they're like powders that help to mattify. And then this has vitamin E and it has squalane, are the main like formulation points. But as I mentioned in the marketing, there is an ingredient complex in here called InfraGuard, and that's one of the big marketing claims they're putting behind the sunscreen. So InfraGuard is an ingredient complex based on an extract around Caesalpinia spinosa, and I'll have the full link here on screen. So this complex is basically an ingredient complex that helps with infrared and some blue light protection. Looking at the marketing of the active ingredient itself from the raw material manufacturer, InfraGuard combines terratannins, which are powerful antioxidants, with organic sunflower sprouts in order to efficiently protect the skin against harmful effects of infrared as well as blue light. If you're not aware, I'll have up here a little spectrum of the light spectrum. So we have visible light, and then on one end you have ultraviolet light, which UVA, UVB are obviously what sunscreen's protecting from. We see some sunscreen claims around visible lights, and what visible light is part of that blue light spectrum. On the opposite end of the visible light spectrum, beyond that, you have infrared light. So what the manufacturer is claiming that InfraGuard does is it protects the skin against pro-aging effects of infrared light through two mechanisms: by blocking the formation of reactive oxygen species inside the mitochondria and protecting that, and also by supporting mitochondrial functions. They do have some in vitro as well as some clinical in vivo, it looks like, testing they did to kind of prove to some effect that this complex could actually protect from infrared light and also give benefits to the skin. But they also say, in terms of blue light, that InfraGuard protects the cells from oxidative stress caused by blue light and particulate matter, so like environmental aggressors basically. I'll have links to everything down below. But yeah, so a lot of claims for this one ingredient. I just like the fact that it's an antioxidant to some capacity, and therefore you're getting a little bit more than just UV protection from the sunscreen. Also, alcohol and fragrance free, which is worth noting. All of Naturium products are alcohol and fragrance free and essential oil free. And then in terms of eye stinging, so as I mentioned, this is 40-minute water resistant. What I really like about the sunscreen formula is the fact that because it is water resistant, it sets down and it sets down quick. And I find that it doesn't move. And I have oily eyelids. I've had no issue with this sunscreen essentially running into my eye, blinding me. I've had no irritation issue around my eye. Even my husband, who he's a little bit more susceptible to that, he has had no issues with the sunscreen getting into his eyes and burning his eyes at all. If eye burning is a concern of yours, definitely look for something that is more water and sweat resistant, because those sunscreens tend to set down and not move as easily. For foundation wear, I have it on right now underneath my makeup. It is a great canvas for makeup. I think because it does set down quick, it's a nice velvet soft finish. If you have oily skin and you want a more matte finish with your makeup, you're gonna have no issues with your foundation going on top, setting down nicely and staying fairly shine free for a good amount of the day. And I mean, I will blot, I will powder, that's a given no matter what I wear, but it's a really nice texture to wear underneath makeup. In terms of pilling, the only times I've experienced pilling with this is if I have way too many skincare products underneath it, so too many layers, and therefore the sunscreen doesn't really get the chance to set very well, and or there's a compatibility issue with the sunscreen and the skincare underneath it. But even then, it's a very subtle pilling. It's not like a full face like sliding off, so that's not a huge concern. If you want the most matte finish out of this and you want to really reap the benefits of that satin matte effect, bare minimum skincare underneath it. I like to use a little serum, maybe a toner. I will maybe moisturize my under eye area, but that's the extent of it, and just a sunscreen on top, so you really get that full matte benefit. And then lastly, for fragrance, there's a light sunscreen scent at most. I'm actually very shocked that there's not more of a sunscreen scent to this. And again, it's fragrance free. There's no other smell to this, but yeah, the sunscreen scent is subtle. It dissipates quickly, and there's no fragrance in this, no fragrant compound. So if you have more sensitive skin to fragrance specifically, you're all good. So my overall thoughts on the Naturium UV Reflect Antioxidant SPF 50, I'm very happy and very surprised at the fact that this is as matte as it is, and it has the finish and feel that it does on oily skin. My only caveat to this is it's $26. The Dew Glow was, I believe, $22. And so on the one hand, it's not a very affordable option. This is 50 ml, so it's a standard sunscreen size. But one thing to consider is Naturium is an indie brand. I know they develop their sunscreen formulas themselves, so they don't go through a contract manufacturer. They don't just go and buy a ready-made formula, basically. And on top of that, I mean, speaking as a chemist, internally, there is a good amount of supply chain issues and things that do affect, at this point in time, how cosmetics are developed and how they're manufactured. So those are things that are worth considering. I think for what this is, it's a very unique American sunscreen formula. As I I mentioned, full disclosure, I have my association with Susan and with Naturium. Do with that information what you will, but the evidence is on screen, how it looks on the skin, how it sits on the skin, how it wears. I've had pretty much every Psychon person I know that's gotten their hands on this really enjoys the formula and texture of this. We all agree it is a very unique formula. So I think this is a banger. If you got oily skin, if you're trying to be matte this summer, especially the fact that it's 40-minute water resistant, this checks so many boxes and then some. I'm very hyped for this. The only caveat being the price point. And I can understand how this might be a little bit inaccessible to certain individuals, but all things considered, I think this is a banger. I'm very excited to have this launch for summertime. And yeah, let me know down below in the comments section, are you gonna get your hands on the new NATURIUM sunscreen? What else do you wanna see NATURIUM launch in terms of their sun care profile? With Dew Glow, you got dew, you got glow, you got creaminess. With the UV Reflect Antioxidant Sunscreen, you have more of a velvety, soft, milky texture. What else do you wanna see from them? I know people are gonna say mineral sunscreens, but what else? Let's get a little creative here. So with all that said, do not forget to hit that subscribe button and notification bell so that you know when I post more skincare, sunscreen, and beauty related content on my channel. Give the video a thumbs up, and thanks for watching, guys. Bye.